At a family barbecue, I accidentally touched my ex-wife's stepmom's arm. She slapped me and stormed off. It started with the smell of charcoal and cut grass. That particular combination always pulls something loose in me, takes me straight back to childhood summers, to folding chairs that stuck to sweaty legs and plastic cups filled with off-brand soda. And for a moment, standing there just outside the gate of their backyard, holding a six-pack of beer that felt like a laughable peace offering, I was almost comforted. Almost. The screen door slammed and I flinched before I even knew why. Just muscle memory, I guess. Linda used to yell at the kids for letting it bang shut. "Goddamn it, you're letting the flies in." But now the sound just hung there unanswered. No one yelled, no one even looked up. It was like I hadn't entered yet, like I didn't exist yet, like I could still turn around and drive back to my apartment, maybe pick up some takeout and lie to myself about how this would have gone. But I didn't. I walked through the gates. It had been almost 2 years since the divorce. I don't remember the exact date we signed the papers. I remember the room being too cold. I remember her fingers fidgeting with the clasp on her purse, her nails chipped, the kind of detail that only matters when you're trying not to cry. I remember signing my name and feeling nothing, then feeling everything all at once, like someone opened a door inside my chest and a winter wind blew through it. So yeah, 2 years, and this was the first time I'd seen her family since. Her brother Danny was the one who invited me, texted me out of nowhere. "Hey man, barbecue Sunday, you should come, still family, right?" I stared at that message for an hour before I answered. "Sure, sounds good." I think I said thanks for the invite too, trying to sound casual, like I didn't feel like I was stepping into a house that had burned down. It was hot that day, not just summer hot, but oppressive. The kind of heat that makes your shirt cling to your back and your patience evaporate before noon. The sun turned everything into a reflection: metal chairs, beer cans, my own goddamn forehead. People were gathered in clumps under the big oak tree, fanning themselves with paper plates, laughing too loud. Kids I barely recognized anymore were darting through the sprinkler. I saw Danny across the yard and gave a little wave. He raised his beer. It was that kind of wave, you know, the one that says, "Hey, you made it, but also this might have been a bad idea." And then I saw her, Linda, my ex-mother-in-law, standing near the food table, arms crossed like she was guarding something sacred. Her hair had gone more silver than I remembered, and her face looked harder, like something inside had calcified. She turned and saw me, and I swear her expression didn't change, not a flicker, like I was a stranger, or worse, someone she wished was a stranger. I tried, I really did, walked up slow, respectful, said, "Hey Linda, you look well." She just nodded, barely, like a reflex she couldn't help. Then she turned back to her bowl of potato salad and didn't say a word. And that was that. I wandered around the yard with my beer in hand like a tourist in my old life. Talked to Danny's wife, made small talk with his teenage daughter about college apps, smiled too much, laughed too hard. It all felt brittle, like it might crack if I breathed too heavy. I felt like a guest at my own funeral, everyone pretending it wasn't weird that I was there, everyone careful not to mention her name. My ex, like she was a ghost still haunting the edges of the conversation. I didn't expect forgiveness, I really didn't. I just thought maybe time had smoothed the edges enough for politeness. I thought maybe, just maybe, I could be a person again instead of the ex-husband. The failure. The one who left, or the one who stayed too long. I don't even know what version of me they hated more. I kept drifting around the yard, refilling my cup with beer I didn't want, trying not to sweat through my shirt, smiling like it was a performance. Danny was manning the grill, smoke rising behind him like a curtain. I stood nearby, watching ribs sizzle. "Smells great," I said. He nodded. Linda made her famous marinade, same as always. "Still got it," I said, even though I hadn't tasted it yet, just filling the space with anything that wasn't silence. Then somewhere between reaching for the tongs and looking for a damn fork, I reached across the table. So did Linda. Her arm brushed against mine, bare skin, A flash of warmth, quick as a match strike, not intentional, not even close. Just two people reaching for a serving spoon at the same time. But it was like I'd touched a live wire. Her eyes widened, sharp, cold, bottomless, and before I could say a word, she slapped me. It wasn't a polite, restrained slap. It wasn't the kind of thing someone does to make a scene for attention. No, it was pure instinct. It was something breaking. Her palm met my face with a sound I'll never forget. Not because it hurt, though it did, but because it landed so fast, so final. The kind of slap that had been waiting for years, maybe even from the day the papers were signed. She didn't say a thing, just turned and walked away, wine glass in hand, her sandals slapping the patio in time with her retreat. The silence spread through the backyard like a spilled drink. I could feel the weight of every eye turning toward me. Someone muttered, "Jesus Christ." I think it was Danny, maybe it was me. I didn't say anything. What was there to say? That I didn't mean to touch her, that I wasn't trying to be disrespectful, that I still have dreams where I show up at their house and she slams the door in my face. No one moved. The smoke kept curling off the grill. A sprinkler still ticked in the distance, casting rainbows over the grass like none of it mattered. And then I left. Walked past the cooler, past the laughter that had already started creeping back into the corners, past the cheap streamers and ticky torches. I got in my car, hands shaking like I'd just escaped a wreck. Sat there with the engine off, staring at my own reflection in the rearview mirror. I didn't look surprised, that's what struck me. My cheek was red, my eyes a little glassy, but I didn't look shocked. I looked expected. Like somewhere deep down I'd known this would happen. Maybe not this exactly, but something. Some punishment I hadn't let myself receive yet. I sat there for a long time, let the sweat dry on my neck, let the silence settle into my bones. Then I started the engine, pulled away slow. And that was the moment everything changed. Not because of the slap, but because I finally saw myself as they saw me. And I didn't know who that man was anymore. The silence in my apartment felt too clean, too controlled, like a hotel room someone just checked out of. I dropped the six-pack on the counter, only one beer missing, the rest sweating in their plastic ring. I didn't bother putting them in the fridge. I just stood there for a while, palms flat on the cold formica, letting the overhead light hum above me. My cheek still stung, not from the force, but from the memory. And underneath that deeper, something else burned, shame maybe, or recognition. I didn't know yet. I didn't cry, I wanted to, that surprised me. I think I expected the slap to open a floodgate or something cinematic like that. But no, just a low hum in my chest, like a machine left running on empty. I took off my shirt, sat on the edge of the couch, turned off the lights. I wanted to disappear inside the dark, become furniture, become the kind of man no one slapped because no one remembered he was there in the first place. My phone buzzed once, then again, a text from Danny. I figured. I didn't check. I wasn't ready to translate concern into words or worse, excuses. I didn't want to hear that Linda was going through something or that she'd had a little too much wine. That slap was sober. It had history in it. Years of resentment coiled into one reflex. It wasn't about the touch. It was about everything before it. All the nights her daughter cried on the phone, probably in that same backyard, telling Linda how I'd shut down again, how I'd slept on the couch, how I didn't come home until after midnight. God, I hated how clearly I could picture those conversations now. I laid down sideways, feet dangling off the edge of the couch, and closed my eyes. But sleep didn't come. It never does when you're waiting for a feeling to pass. I stared at the ceiling for what could have been hours or minutes. It all blurred, just white plaster, a crack I hadn't noticed before stretching like a fault line above my head. The next morning, the slap had become a weight, not just on my face, but in my movements. Everything felt slow. I made coffee and forgot to drink it. I opened the fridge 3 times before I realized I wasn't hungry. I went for a walk. I don't even remember deciding to leave the apartment. It was like my body moved without me, just slipped into shoes, grabbed my keys, and stepped out into the world. It was still hot, but quieter than the day before. The kind of heat that presses against your skin instead of slicing into it. I walked without direction past the gas station where I used to buy beer before I stopped drinking during the week, past the library that still had the faded MASKS required sign taped to the glass, past the church with the sad-looking ficus out front. I ended up near the old diner, the one I used to take her to after Sunday mornings in bed, back when we still had rituals. I hadn't been inside since the split, but something pulled me in, nostalgia, hunger, punishment, I don't know. It smelled the same, burnt toast, grease, artificial vanilla, the kind of smell that sticks to your clothes and your memory. I sat at the counter, hands in my lap like a kid waiting for a lecture. The place was almost empty. A couple in the corner booth, an old man reading a newspaper like it still mattered. Then her, Clara, I'd learn later. She wore a black apron and had pink hair pulled up in a messy knot. A tattoo of a bird peeked out from her sleeve. She slid a laminated menu in front of me but didn't speak right away. Just looked at me, her head tilted slightly, like she was trying to figure out which category I belonged in. "You okay?" she asked eventually, not in the fake customer service voice, but real, unfiltered. I stared at her for a second too long, then said, "Not really." She nodded. "Yeah, you look like someone who's been slapped." I barked out a laugh before I could stop it. She didn't flinch, just poured me coffee, the kind that tastes like pennies and old heartbreak, and said, "Waffles are good today." So I ordered waffles, even though I didn't want them. I just wanted to keep sitting there inside the illusion of normalcy. Somewhere between the syrup and the second cup of coffee, I started to feel my body again. I told her my name. She didn't ask for the rest of the story. Maybe she knew that whatever version I gave her would be rehearsed, filtered through justifications and guilt. Instead, she said, "Sometimes people slap us for things we didn't do to them." And I just stared at my plate, trying to decide whether that made me feel better or worse. Probably both. That night I walked again. The heat had finally broken and the air smelled like wet earth and cut lawns. I passed the dog park and saw a guy with 2 mutts wrestling in the grass. They didn't care about time, about history. They just were. I envied that, being present without past. I kept walking, past my old gym, past the tattoo shop with the neon skull in the window, past the street where she and I had our first real fight, screaming in the car, parked under a broken streetlight, her mascara running, my hands gripping the steering wheel like it could keep me from saying something I couldn't take back. I remembered how she said, "You're always halfway somewhere else," and I didn't have the words to deny it. Back at my apartment, I took a long shower. The water ran cold halfway through. I let it. Something about it felt like penance. I stood there, forehead pressed to the tile, listening to the drain swallow what it could. I didn't check my phone. I didn't open my laptop. I just sat on the floor in a towel and watched the condensation gather on the mirror, distorting my reflection into something soft and shapeless. I was beginning to understand that the slap wasn't the worst part. The worst part was how right it felt. Like the world had caught up to something I'd always known but never said out loud. I hadn't just failed her. I'd failed myself. And I didn't yet know how to stop doing that. It was late September when the letter arrived. The envelope was plain, no return address, no stamp beyond the generic red ink of the sorting machine. Just my name printed in a tight, angular script I hadn't seen in years. I knew it was her mother's handwriting before I even opened it. Something in my chest tight, a sudden cold beneath my ribs. I let the envelope sit on the kitchen table for an hour, poured myself a glass of water, took 2 sips, forgot I'd poured it. I circled around the table like it was something alive, something with teeth. When I finally opened it, the letter was only a few lines long. Not dramatic, not cruel, not warm either. I overreacted. I'm sorry, I still can't look at you without remembering her crying. I know that's not fair, but that's where I'm at. That was it. I read it 3 times. Each time it felt heavier. Not because of what it said, but because of what it didn't say. No absolution, no request, no offer to talk, just a small, tired truth. She didn't hate me, not in the theatrical way I'd imagined. She just couldn't see past what I reminded her of. And I, standing there with that letter trembling in my hand, couldn't see past it either. I sat down on the floor, back against the fridge, letter resting on my thigh. The tile was cold and sharp beneath me. I thought about the way she used to hold her daughter's face in her hands gently, like something breakable, like something precious. And I thought that's what I was entrusted with, not just her, but them, her family, her memories, her softest parts. And I dropped them all. I didn't cheat, I didn't hit her. That always felt like my unspoken defense, but I'd left her in quieter ways you can't prove in court. I withdrew slowly, like someone backing out of a room and hopping no one notices. I stopped reaching for her hand during movies. I stopped asking her how her day was. I started staying late at work, not because I had to, but because I couldn't stand the sound of my own silence around her. She'd ask me what was wrong, and I'd say nothing, always nothing, until she stopped asking. I don't know when I gave up. That's the worst part. It wasn't a single moment. It was a slow erosion. And by the time she looked me in the eye and said, "I can't do this anymore," I think part of me was relieved. Not because I didn't love her, but because I didn't know how to keep failing her. The letter forced something open in me, not grief, not exactly, more like reckoning, like finally stepping into the house you'd abandoned and seeing the damage you left behind. I thought about writing back, but what could I say? Thank you for your honesty. I'm sorry for everything. No letter could fix the past. It could only acknowledge it. So instead, I drove. I didn't tell anyone, didn't pack anything. Just got in my car and drove north toward the lake where she and I used to go before life got heavy. It was a place we always said we'd return to, maybe with kids, maybe older, more patient, more ourselves. We made promises by that water under the glow of a citronella candle, skin sticky with bug spray and summer sweat. Promises that sounded holy when whispered in the dark. I think some part of me wanted to lay them to rest. The road there was empty, trees turning orange and gold, the air crisp enough to crack. I rolled the windows down and let the wind tangle my hair, dry my eyes. The sun was low when I parked by the dock. No one else around, just the slow lapping of water against wood and the creak of old boards beneath my feet. I sat at the edge of the dock and let my feet dangle, shoes off, cold water kissing my toes, and I talked out loud to her, to myself, to the ghosts that hung between memory and guilt. "I'm sorry," I said. "I'm sorry I disappeared while standing next to you. I'm sorry I made you carry the loneliness alone. I'm sorry I didn't know how to stay or leave the right way. I'm sorry I made your mother slap a ghost." My voice cracked on that last one, and for a moment I was crying, not sobbing, just leaking, like something quietly splitting open. It felt like letting go of a breath I didn't know I'd been holding for years. I stayed until it got dark. The moon broke through the clouds like a secret, and I watched the ripples turn silver. I felt something shift inside me, not redemption, but maybe the start of something gentler. A crack in the armor, a small, necessary fracture. And then I drove home, quieter, lighter, not healed, not even close, but present, aware, awake in a way I hadn't been since long before the slap. The past hadn't forgiven me, but for the first time I had stopped running from it. I started waking up early, not because I had to, but because I couldn't sleep past the quiet anymore. There's a kind of peace in 6:30 a.m. when the world hasn't fully decided what it's going to be yet. I'd sit by the window with my coffee, black now, no sugar, no milk, and just watch the light stretch across the buildings like it was feeling them out for the first time. Mornings became a kind of ritual, not for productivity, but for noticing things. The way my breath curled against the glass. The sound of pigeons shifting restlessly on the ledge. The fact that I was still here. I started keeping a notebook, nothing ambitious, just scraps, half-thoughts, lines I liked. Grief has its own gravity. I miss people who don't exist anymore. The past is a room I keep the door cracked open to. That kind of thing. I didn't write for anyone. I didn't even reread most of it. I just needed to see what was happening inside me from the outside. Sometimes I'd go back to the diner. Clara would be there, same messy hair, same swallow tattoo. She never pried, never asked how I was really doing. She just topped off my coffee and told me about her roommate's weird habits or her crush on the UPS driver or the dream she had where she turned into a ferret. I liked that, the low-stakes honesty, the way she didn't try to fix anything. Once she slid a plate of pancakes in front of me and said, "You look less haunted today." I smiled. I feel less haunted. It was true. I'd stopped checking her Instagram, the ex. I'd stopped looking for signs that her life was better without me or worse or anything at all. There's a particular kind of freedom in no longer needing to be a character in someone else's story. She existed. I existed. That was enough. I took a part-time job at a bookstore downtown. Nothing glamorous. Mostly unpacking boxes, shelving paperbacks, listening to people argue about which Murakami novel is the best one. But it gave me structure, something to return to each day. I liked the smell of cardboard and dust and ink. I liked the quiet conversations about dog-eared pages and coffee-stained margins. I liked the solitude that wasn't loneliness. I saw Danny once outside a grocery store. We both reached for the same basket and froze. He smiled first, a little guarded but not unkind. "How have you been?" he asked. "Better," I said, "still learning." He nodded. "Aren't we all?" That was it. No apology, no explanations. Just a shared moment of humanness between two men who'd stood too close to a fire and still carried the smoke in their clothes. Some nights I still walked, but not to escape, just to breathe. The city felt different now, less like a maze and more like a map I could trace with my fingertips. I started noticing new things, murals on alley walls I'd missed before, a cat that sat on the same porch step every evening, the way certain streetlights flickered like they had a secret to tell. I wasn't trying to get back to who I was. That version of me, whatever he was, had already done enough damage. I was trying to become someone new, or maybe just someone honest. Someone who didn't flinch at silence. Someone who didn't treat love like a project to manage. One night, Clara and I sat on the curb outside the diner after closing. She lit a cigarette and offered me one. I shook my head. "You ever think about starting over?" I asked. She blew smoke into the sky. "Every day, but then I remember you don't get to start over. You just start from here." I thought about that for a long time, from here. Not from before the slap, not from before the silence, not from before the drift. Just here. I still think about Linda sometimes. The way her eyes locked onto mine right before she slapped me like I was a locked box she'd finally forced open. I don't hold it against her. If anything, I understand it more now. That grief doesn't always make sense. That pain needs somewhere to go, and sometimes it lands on the wrong person at the right moment. But I also know now I can't carry other people's ghosts forever. I have my own to bury, my own hands to forgive. I still make mistakes, I still feel lonely. I still wake up some mornings and wonder if I'll ever really be good at this, being human. But I do numb it the way I used to. I don't disappear into work or whiskey or guilt. I let it sit with me. I let it teach me something. The plant in my windowsill, the one I kept forgetting to water, is somehow still alive. A little lopsided, a little sunburned on one side, but reaching toward the light anyway. Maybe that's what I am now, a little burned, a little uneven, but still reaching. Still growing. Still here.